I've always been kind of fascinated by these unexplained stories. And the Bermuda Triangle, well, it's got to be one of the most enduring, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's captured the public imagination for decades. It really has.
Yeah, so let's really dig into that today. I mean, think about it, a place on Earth where people actually claim the sky or the sea just swallows things.
Literally swallows them whole. It's a powerful image.
Exactly. We're talking, of course, about the infamous Bermuda Triangle, that patch of the North Atlantic.
Yeah.
West part, between Florida, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda.
And it's picked up some pretty spooky nicknames over the years, too.
Oh, yeah, like the Devil's Triangle or the Limbo of the Lost, serious stuff.
Right, and the name Bermuda Triangle, that really took off, didn't it, after that magazine article?
That's right, yeah. Vincent Gaddis, Argosy magazine back in the 50s, the deadly Bermuda Triangle. There was some chatter before, but that article really, cemented it in the public mind.
And the core mystery is just so compelling.
It really is. You hear these classic stories, compasses going wild, radios just cutting out.
Electronics fluctuating.
Yeah, and then planes, ships, even people just vanishing.
Yeah.
Completely, without a trace. So today, our mission really is to dive into those intriguing claims, those stories, but then unpack the more grounded explanations.
Try to get a clearer picture of what's actually going on or what might have gone on.
Yeah, exactly. So you can get a handle on this whole thing.
Well, it's fascinating how these stories got started. I mean, right from the beginning, you had reports from ships going into the area talking about, unsettling things, electronics acting up, compasses spinning.
Radio's just dead.
Radio's dead, yeah. It really painted this picture of a zone where the normal rules just didn't seem to apply.
And the really chilling part, for me anyway, is that lack of wreckage. These massive planes, big ships, they vanish, and often nothing. No debris, no oil slick, nothing.
Right.
You mentioned that lack of wreckage. From your research, why do you think that specific detail is so central to the myth? What does it do to how we see these events?
Well, it's pure psychology, isn't it? It's the unknown, the complete lack of evidence, that vanishing without a trace idea.
Yeah.
It just transforms what might be a tragic accident into something, something else.
Something mysterious, unexplained.
Precisely. It makes finding any conventional explanation feel, unsatisfying somehow. That's why the lack of wreckage is so haunting.
Yeah.
Take the Ellen Austin. That story from, 1888?
Right, the ship near the triangle.
Yeah. Captain Griffin takes a shortcut, sees this other boat, totally empty, just moving erratically.
Weird.
So he puts some of his crew on it, right, to tow it. But then a storm blows up. The tow line breaks. They lose sight of it. When the storm clears, the boat's back. But the Ellen Austin crew members who were on it?
Gone.
Just gone.
Vanish.
Wow. Okay, that is creepy. And that whole era seems full of these stories, like the Mary Celeste. That's another famous one from around then. 1872. Left New York for Italy.
And then?
Disappeared. Found about a month later, just floating near the triangle. Empty.
Empty, but wasn't there something weird about how it was found? Like things left behind?
Dinner still on the table, plates set, personal belongings there. But the captain, his wife, their daughter, the whole crew, all gone.
Just vanished.
Yeah.
No, the sources do mention some other things, right? Like heavy insurance, maybe, theories about evacuation.
Yeah, there were definitely those angles too. Questions about insurance fraud, or maybe they hit rough weather, an abandoned ship, and a lifeboat that got lost. But still, the way it was found.
It fuels the mystery. It comes back to that, doesn't it? Not just an accident, but a vanishing. That lack of clear evidence makes it so hard to just accept a simple explanation.
Precisely. And then fast forward to the modern era, and you get what's probably the most famous story of all, the one that really cemented the legend.
Flight 19 has to be.
December 5th, 1945. 5 U.S. Navy Avenger torpedo bombers. A routine training mission out of Florida.
Routine, yeah. But then things went wrong.
Very wrong. Weather got bad. Their compasses apparently failed. The leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, he reportedly got disoriented.
And didn't he report seeing something strange?
Well, there are reports, maybe radio transcripts are a bit debated, but one account mentions him saying something like seeing something burning at 100 feet height. And then silence.
The whole group, 5 planes, gone.
Vanished. And the search plane sent after them vanished too.
Right. The Martin Mariner flying boat, that just adds another layer entirely. It's hard to wrap your head around 5 military planes just poof.
It really captured the public imagination, and it wasn't just recent history either. People started looking back.
Columbus.
Yeah, even Christopher Columbus. In his log, 1492, sailing near the area, He noted his compass acting strangely.
Acting strangely how?
Well, the needle wasn't pointing where it should, basically. And he also saw, quote, a great flame of fire fall into the sea, or maybe a light like a candle falling from the sky. Accounts vary a bit.
A light like a candle falling. Okay, so even back then, centuries ago, sailors noticed weird stuff in that area. Well, that's pretty compelling background, isn't it?
It definitely adds to the mystique.
So, okay, we have these historical accounts, the famous incidents like Flight 19. But what about more recent stuff? Personal stories that keep the legend alive.
Well, that brings us to people like Bruce Gernon.
The pilot. The one who claims he flew through something.
That's the one. His story is extraordinary. Flying from the Bahamas to Florida should take about, what, an hour and a half?
Yeah, roughly, depending on the plane.
He claims he did it in just 45 minutes.
45 minutes. But how? His plane couldn't fly that fast, could it?
Exactly. Not even close to the speed needed. And he also claimed he barely used any fuel, his explanation. He flew through some kind of time warp or an electronic fog.
A time warp. Electronic fog. No fuel loss. I mean, wow. That sounds like pure science fiction.
It does.
When you hear accounts like Gernon's, I mean, as someone looking for the grounded explanations, how do you even begin to tackle something like that? Seems so out there.
Well, stories like Bruce's, they really feed into what you could call the economy of mystery.
The economy of mystery. What do you mean by that?
Think about why these stories are so popular, why they stick around. Mysterious tales, especially things that hint at conspiracies or the truly unknown, they just resonate with people, right?
Yeah, people love a good mystery.
Absolutely. And books, movies, documentaries about the Bermuda Triangle, they sell millions. Way more than, a dry, factual account explaining compass variations or weather patterns. Mystery sells. Facts can sometimes feel a bit boring in comparison.
That makes sense. The story is just more exciting. But doesn't that economy of mystery, as you call it, make it really hard for the factual side to get heard?
It definitely does. It creates this feedback loop where the stranger the story, the more attention it gets.
Because the modern reality, when you look at it, it paints a very, very different picture, doesn't it?
Completely different. Today, the Bermuda Triangle isn't some empty, mysterious void. It's one of the most heavily trafficked shipping lanes and flight paths in the entire world.
Right. Constant traffic. Planes, cruise ships, cargo vessels.
All equipped with advanced GPS, radar, sonar. I mean, if things were truly vanishing without a trace on a regular basis with today's technology,
we'd know. It wouldn't be a mystery anywhere. It'd be a major international crisis.
Precisely. And the official stance kind of reflects that reality.
Yeah, you look it up, the Bermuda Triangle. It's not listed among the world's top 10 most dangerous regions for shipping or flying. Not even close.
The U.S. Navy doesn't even officially recognize the name Bermuda Triangle.
And Wikipedia straight up calls it an urban legend.
Which raises that obvious question. If it's so uniquely perilous, why don't the authorities, the people who actually manage shipping and flight safety, treat it that way?
Good point. So what does the actual data say? Forget the scary stories for a second.
Well, the data is, it's pretty revealing. Lloyd's of London, they keep meticulous records of shipping incidents.
All right, the big maritime insurance market. They'd know.
They would. And their data, looking at a specific period, showed that out of, 8,634 ships that passed through the Triangle area, only 2 casualties occurred.
Only 2 out of over 8,000.
Yeah, which works out to a casualty rate far, far lower than the global average. The global average casualty rate for vessels was about 1.8% at the time.
Wait, so the Lloyd's data suggests it's actually safer than average to sail through the Bermuda Triangle?
Statistically, in that data set, yes, significantly safer.
Wow, okay, that flips the script entirely.
Yeah.
What about other reports? I think I saw something about 75 missing planes and ships.
Right. There was a report, I think La Tribuna mentioned 75 disappearances over a certain period, which sounds like a lot, maybe.
Yeah, 75 sounds like a big number.
But when you factor in the huge volume of traffic lanes and ships constantly crisscrossing that area, and you compare it to other busy parts of the ocean, that number actually averages out to be pretty normal, not unusually high at all.
So the perceived danger is more about the attention given to incidents there, not the actual frequency.
Exactly. And think about this. There's another area, the Dragon's Triangle, or the Devil's Sea, off the coast of Japan.
Okay.
It's at a similar latitude, shares some similar geographical characteristics, and it also has a reputation for strange disappearances and weird phenomena.
But we don't hear nearly as much about the Dragon's Triangle, do we?
Nope. Why? Mostly because it hasn't had the same Hollywood treatment, the same best-selling books, the same decades of media hype as the Bermuda Triangle. It highlights how much of the fame is driven by the narrative, not necessarily by unique danger.
Okay, so if it's not aliens or sea monsters or time warps, what are the actual scientific explanations for the things that have happened there? Let's start with the compasses. Columbus mentioned it. Flight 19 had issues.
Right, the compass thing is a big one. And there's a really solid explanation. You know how a compass needle points to magnetic north?
Yeah, not true geographic north. There's a difference called variation or declination.
Exactly. Navigators always have to account for that difference.
Right.
But there's something called the agonic line. It's an imaginary line on the Earth's surface where magnetic north and true north happen to align perfectly.
So on that line, a compass would point to true north.
Correct. And for many, many years, guess where that agonic line ran?
Right through the Bermuda Triangle.
Bingo. So imagine you're Columbus or even the Flight 19 pilots used to compensating for magnetic variation. Suddenly you enter an area where your compass isn't showing that expected variation. It seems to be pointing correctly to true north, or maybe it fluctuates weirdly as you cross the line if you don't understand why it's doing that.
You could get seriously lost. You'd think your compass was broken, or you'd make critical navigation errors.
Precisely. It explains why Columbus noted anomalies, and significantly, the official investigation into Flight 19. It actually cited pilot disorientation, likely compounded by compass problems leading them further out to sea, and ultimately running out of fuel, human error, and known navigational challenges.
So the compass wasn't malfunctioning in a mysterious way. It was behaving according to known magnetic principles, but in a way that could easily confuse pilots not expecting it. Okay, that makes sense. What about ships just sinking, vanishing instantly?
That's where the methane hydrates theory comes in. It's pretty fascinating.
Methane hydrates, like underwater gas.
Sort of. There are vast deposits of methane locked in ice-like structures on the seabed in many parts of the world, including potentially areas around the triangle.
Okay.
If there's a disturbance, like an underwater tremor or landslide, these deposits can suddenly destabilize and release huge bubbles of methane gas that rise to the surface.
Giant gas bubbles.
Yeah, huge ones. And think about what that does to the water. It drastically lowers the water's density. It becomes frothy, almost like fizzy water.
So a ship sailing over that.
It would instantly lose buoyancy. The water can no longer support its weight. It could sink incredibly rapidly, almost straight down, potentially without even time for a distress call.
Leaving no wreckage on the surface.
Plausibly, yes. It would be a sudden, catastrophic event.
Wow. That's a terrifyingly mundane explanation in a way. A natural phenomenon. Okay, that covers ships potentially. What about planes falling out of the sky?
Well, aside from severe unexpected weather, which is common in that region, there was that interesting study in 2016 from the University of Colorado.
Hexagonal clouds thing.
That's the one. They used satellite imagery and noticed these unusual, sharp-edged hexagonal cloud formations over the area.
Hexagonal clouds. That sounds weird in itself.
It is unusual, and their theory is that these formations can create what they called air bombs. Essentially, incredibly powerful microbursts, columns of air rushing down towards the sea surface.
How powerful?
Potentially hitting speeds of like 170, 175 miles per hour, like a hurricane force wind, but localized and punching straight down.
Okay, if a plane flew into something like that.
It could be catastrophic. Extreme turbulence, structural failure. It could certainly bring a plane down very quickly. Again, a natural, albeit extreme, weather phenomenon.
So we've got compass variations, methane gas eruptions, extreme localized weather like air bombs.
Yeah.
And just plain old bad weather and human error in a busy area.
Exactly. And that's really what most scientists, like Dr. Carl Krasnolnicki, mentioned Dr. Cora, similar conclusions they point to. When you strip away the hype and look at the evidence, most incidents attributed to the triangle can likely be explained by a combination of these factors.
Human error, rough weather, maybe equipment failure in an area with a lot of traffic.
Right. The sheer volume of planes and ships means that statistically, you're just going to have more accidents and incidents reported there compared to an empty stretch of ocean. It doesn't mean the area itself possesses some unique, mysterious danger. It's just busier.
So really, when we pull it all together, we've looked at the legends, the chilling stories, the things that have captured our imagination for, gosh, decades now. But then we look at the data, the science, the official stance, and a very different picture emerges, doesn't it?
It really does. Compelling, logical explanations for most, if not all, of these incidents. Compass behavior, geology, meteorology, human factors.
It seems like the mystery has been largely, well, explained. Maybe not as exciting as aliens or time warps.
Perhaps not as exciting, no. But arguably more satisfying if you're looking for actual understanding.
Yeah. So if you're listening and wondering what the big takeaway is from this deep dive, I guess it's that the Bermuda Triangle, while it's given us some amazing folklore and really spooky stories, it mostly serves as this powerful example, doesn't it? An example of how human interpretation, combined with some genuinely unusual but natural phenomena, plus a whole lot of media hype, can combine to create this incredibly enduring mystery, even when the actual data, the science, tells a much more down-to-earth story.
Absolutely. It really boils down to the power of narrative, the power of a good story. We're drawn to mystery, to the unexplained. And sometimes that powerful narrative can overshadow the more mundane, factual evidence. It's a great reminder, really, for all of us to always kind of question the stories we hear, especially the really sensational ones.
Dig a little deeper.
Exactly. Seek that deeper understanding, look at the evidence, even when a legend is as captivating and honestly as fun as the Bermuda Triangle.